To begin with, I should define sovereignty. And I've done it hundreds of times. But here it is. And this is in the truest legal, or I would prefer lawful context of the term. Sovereignty, if understood, for the Indian, it's a living philosophy. It's something we never talked about, never had it in our language, never knew the English language. So sovereignty in relation to international law and its foundation, international law, is tribal law. Okay, let's get that right. So sovereignty, if understood and lived properly, it defines a nation. Now, should there be a nation? And we're not going by the definition made by the United Nations in relation to a nation. No, we're not talking about their concept. An Indian tribe is a nation because treaties were made with Indian tribes. Let's get that right. So sovereignty, if understood properly, it defines a nation. Should there be a nation or a signatory Indian tribe, then there is a separation in relation to jurisdiction and law. You have Indians that are to be by their own law, and a white civilized nation such as Canada, first of all, Great Britain, they live by their law. Now, in relation to sovereignty, the citizenship of the Indian is totally different than the citizenship of the white man or white government. And I've said it time and again, and please get it right, you people understand it. There's no way that a white civilized nation can make an Indian a citizen of it. It defeats all the laws I just mentioned, tribal law, international law, and even their own law. So the falsehood of assuming jurisdiction is a crime. And that's what Canada is doing. They're assuming jurisdiction because the Indians don't know who they are anymore. And who is responsible for that? The criminal known as Canada and the Crown of England. They are assuming jurisdiction, which is a crime because they caused the Indians to be institutionalized mentally and to think like them and to work even in their government. So in all of this, the true concept is very little known and people don't care. Yet, if they did it properly and listened, they could take back the territory they live in because the reservation is just a dot within the territory. And the territory is defined by a linguistic concept. Wherever your language is spoken is your jurisdiction. Nehiyawewin, where I come from, Rocky Mountains, all the way to Quebec and south into parts of what they call Montana, that whole area. The Sac and Fox people, who they call Sac and Fox, they speak our language. I met an old man who was my age at that time. I'm 78 years old. He was in close to his 80s as well. We spoke the language, exchanging words. Their language is very much like ours. Very same meaning as some of the words. So that defines territory. Now, having said that, why it is not acknowledged by the government of Canada or the Crown of England? Because they know. They're the ones who know. Most of the Indians are institutionalized and they're classified according to international law as POWs, prisoners of war. Look at the reservations, reserves, those terms, rancheros, pueblos in the United States. Look at international law and what are they classified? What are those terms applied? How are they applied? They apply to prisoner of war camps or places where prisoner of wars are kept. Yet, there was a treaty made. And the treaty, according to the foundation of international law, which all countries must abide by, can only be based upon peace. Not the surrender of land, the theft of land, the imprisonment of the people, the indoctrination of the people, turning them against each other to destroy whatever idea they have of getting back their territory. That is a crime. Now, I can sit here and say that, but I mean it, and it's not a matter of proving it in their courts of law. I don't go to their courts of law other than to free our people who want to come back to being real Indians, not coming back to join a system that's destroying us. I don't do it for that. I don't do it for people to get off a charge. No, I tell them, go get a liar. I'm sorry, Freudian slip, lawyer.
Can you explain how signatory Indians are different from the Indian Act people?
Because they removed from the Indian Act legally. There is a system of doing it, and I know the system of how you're to do it. You have to remove from Indian affairs, but you must remove as a member of a tribe and or under the protection of a signatory tribe until you come to know your clan, who you are. Like Lester House, that is not who I am. That is not who I am. That's been removed. Wapiskisit Piyesiw, that's my name. Interpreted White Thunderbird. That was my name given. I didn't go asking for it. Now, where the situation here is, for example, not too long ago I went online. I do that periodically to find out what this government is up to. So all of a sudden they got some guy on there, I don't know who he represents, Indian Affairs or the government, saying you people can now have your Indian name put on your status cards. Anybody that goes for it, they still got jurisdiction over you because of that status card. And you don't go around making up status cards like some of these make-believe people are. A signatory Indian and the authority right belongs to the women. You'll never find any woman that I honor as the authorities ever opening their mouth publicly. That's too low. They send people like me to do it. They send the headmen to do it. So anybody out there that's got, I'm clan mother, I'm this, I'm that, that's false, and they should quit that because they're going to harm themselves ultimately. And there's many of them out there claiming clan mothership and everything else publicly, sitting there in the media, saying things that they don't even understand. I want them to quit it because most of them are getting their information from documents that the late Meredith Quinn had passed to me. I was to carry it on. And that in itself, by the way it was passed, it's the old tribal system of law. He decides who to pass it to because he was the one who was given by the woman's side. His kunshi, his grandmother, who was also an authority of Dakota. Now, having said that, so the authority right and the title of the territory belongs to the women. No women can stand up and assume, oh, we have the title. No, cut that out. That's a lie. And that's dangerous for you to do. Like I said, go around waving your hand, I'm a headman, I'm this. No, you don't do that unless you know who you are. And I mean it because it is dangerous. Ultimately, the government loves it because like that woman that stood up against the Pope. Well, she wasn't against the Pope. She sang "Oh Canada" in the language, differently worded, same tune. But she was there claiming to be a clan mother, and her last name is Francois. She was at a couple of sessions when I was trying to teach people, and she assumed she's somebody. And she's been instructed by a white Englishman. His name is Timothy Phillips, and he's committed treason against our tribe. So, as far as I'm concerned, at any time people who find him, they can take those documents from him because those documents were stolen from the late Mrs. Quinn, Patty Quinn, late Meredith's partner and wife, if you want to use that term. So that authority was passed to me directly from Meredith. So in saying this, I'm not here to gain attention. I'm here to straighten matters out. And if APTN has the gumption to present what it is I'm saying, perhaps they'll be helpful. Otherwise, there's no sense in me talking any further. And I mean it.
Yeah.
I chose APTN because a lot of Indian people watch APTN. But they have never been told anything other than observing the death of other people. You're reporting the death of other Indians. You're reporting our demise by observing it. I'm not saying you don't take it personally. What is presented, that's all it is. Every time I hear about a reserve, oh, little boy lost. Oh, little boy dead. Oh, little girl raped. Nothing done. They turn to the RCMP who are criminals. You RCMP are criminals. And, for example, this comes directly from the head of RCMP K Division, which was instituted here in the province of Alberta. They call Alberta by K Division. That's where Ceases was born out of. At a meeting in Edmonton, I was told by the head cop through another cop who was sent there, officer was sent there to tell me, CSIS was stopped from classifying me as the #1 threat to Canadian security, which they did. And the head of K Division, he sent his officer up there to let me know. He said, apparently we're not to be touched. Because he asked for my criminal record, if any, and he wanted to know, why is it he's classified as #1 threat? And the last charge was 1974, I believe it was a common assault.
Yeah.
Actually, I was defending myself. But the point of it is, there was nothing serious. So the Minister for the Environment at that time was a Liberal. I forget his name, Anderson, I believe. And he told them, as well as Ralph Klein's minister, he told them, leave him alone. You don't touch him. Straight out. So the RCMP have no business bothering signatory Indians. They've continuously grabbed people off the reserve because they know who they can bother. They even know who's under their law and jurisdiction. And if they don't know, they'll find out with one phone call. So what I'm saying here is the RCMP are comprised of criminals. They have been committing crimes against Indian people for too long. And I intend to stop it the way that I can. I'll also say here now to the RCMP, remember now, my law and the people under the law that I introduced, the tribal people, signatory Indians, are now of a law that supersedes the one that you have to answer to. So be very careful when you come to disturb Indians. If you ever disturb RCMP, if you ever disturb a signatory Indian, you will be dealt with severely, very severely. We don't carry guns. And you're not allowed to come anywhere near our territory with guns. You will be disarmed. We will disarm you. And you will be put under arrest. We don't have jails. We don't beat on people like you do. And we don't have handcuffs like you do, or chains. But you will be arrested. You will be stopped. Arrest, I said it before, comes from French, arrêt, means to stop you. But to stop you legally, by law. If we have to, we will. So we're telling you now, don't be bothering us. And if we hear where you've killed or bothered anybody in another Indian reservation, and if they call us in to help them, we will do it. And we will find out who you are, and we'll come to arrest you, no matter where you are. So you will be the one that'll be running and hiding. So you're given fair warning legally. You leave signatory Indians alone. You leave all Indians alone, because they can come under the protection at any time of our tribe.
And is for the follow-up to that, is the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations sovereign?
No, that's a lie. No. They're registered. What were they registered as before? The Federation of Saskatchewan? There goes jurisdiction right there. They don't have it. The Federation of Saskatchewan Indian Nation. Change the name, but you're still registered under the white man's law and jurisdiction. You're an organization registered under theirs. Every Indian reserve today, chief and council system, what they are legally, what they really are, they made themselves non-Indians. They're no longer Indians. All they are is the chief executive officer of a corporate charter under Canada, belonging to Canada. And people talk about UNDRIP and how it's going to help. No, that's the United Nations. Canada's a member of the UN. Got it? So UNDRIP is under their law. So the white government in Ottawa decides about UNDRIP, not the Indian people. Because that government knows that chief and council are not legal. So those people are acting illegally, the chief and council. They shouldn't take it personally. They should quit. Stop. All monies that are due to the Indian tribe or people does not go to the tribe or people. It goes to a third world government on the reservation who don't even use it to help the people. You know, you can cross this country. Right now, I'll tell you, termination is coming because of a chief and council system still running in the reserve. So I've looked at reserves and I know termination. I've seen it before, and it is coming. So I'm telling you this to wake up the people. Quit being natives, quit being First Nations, quit being Métis. All of those terms were given by the government of Canada, accepted by people, Indian, expatriated Indians, suggesting First Nations. That came from late Saul Sanderson, or I don't know if he's still alive, I heard he passed. But if he isn't, Saul, bad move. He was the head of the Federation of Saskatchewan Indian Nations. And he felt so proud to tell us at one time, he said, you're going to see signs on the highway saying First Nation. Well, that's nothing to be proud of. That's saying we're still POWs. We're still prisoners of war. Proud of it. So that's the ignorance among our people, and especially those who are educated. Those who go get degrees, like Murray Sinclairs, who ran that, whatever it was. What happened there was wonderful, meaning the people got to tell their story. And it was the people, their stories, they were real. That's caused this so-called commission of inquiry. It isn't going to go anywhere unless the people keep at it. It's the people that'll do something about it. But there's nothing that I would bother with. To me, I don't protest. I have nothing to protest. I've only to stop them. And I've done it. I've commanded the Crown of England, so I know what I'm talking about. And she had to honor it. A lot of people have seen it. I showed them the command and her response. She acknowledged the command. And the Governor General for Canada also acknowledged that command.
Getting into that a little further, can you tell us your personal experience in your home territory asserting title?
Yes, it was hard because I was dealing with people, again, who were Christianized. I was, rather than Christianized, I like to use the term victimized. Victimized by the Government of Canada. They used to live in a place called Jasper, and they were removed and told never to be bothered again. One of the old men I become close to when I lived there, and he went, I opened the the town hall up in Grand Cache, Alberta, to sit with the mayor, who's an ex-RCMP, and Floyd, to sit with him and his council. And the old man explained, he was actually speaking a language that was interpreted. He was explaining territorial right, meaning right where that town is built is where his trap line, or I don't like the term trap line, his hunting grounds were. That was before there was any concept of trap lines or any imposition by the government of Alberta. Now, having said that, going back to what you had to ask there, all right, if you look around, you have today a lot of people that are striving to be free of that's the system. It's all over. White people, you name it. They all want to be free. It's not going to happen until they understand tribal law. They're the only thing left that can free them. It's the only the Indian that can free them. And there's no way that anybody who's under the law of Canada, that means chief and council, any organization registered under them, no offense to the people, there's good people doing good things in those organizations, but they have no clout whatsoever because they're still classified as prisoners of war. Okay? If you want to go further on that question, add to it.
Yeah, well, you have courtroom experience, starting with the cigarette case in Saskatchewan in 1994.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what happened there?
Yeah, I was back home and I got a call from two brothers. They were visiting in Hobima. Their wives were teaching school there. And they had been selling tobacco in Saskatchewan, Wapiskisit Indian Reserve, believing it was their right. Well, I felt it was their right, but they had to understand. It really wasn't their right. It had to do with jurisdiction. So, where I told them, look, I have to school you for about a month, but if you've entered a plea, I can't help you, because you've already decided that the judge and his jurisdiction, the prosecution, will determine whether you're guilty or innocent. So I tell people, I told them in that case, if you didn't enter a plea, I can help you. I said they didn't. So we went to the case in Saskatchewan, Melbourne, and it was a federal case, Queen's Bench. The judge was a little reluctant to have me present because I didn't wear the black cloak and all that regalia that they use. So I told him I was qualified. So he called us, both me and the prosecution, into his chamber. And he asked me again what qualified me. I said, what qualifies me is I'm an Indian. He said, according to the Indian? I said, no. I said, according to me, in my upbringing and my background, I'm an Indian. And I explained to him, I'm not here to challenge your jurisdiction. You have a jurisdiction. I'm here to point out that these two men cannot be included or sentenced under your law and jurisdiction. They can't be included as citizens. That's the only way that you can convict them if they're citizens of your country, which they can't be because of that treaty. So he said, you're qualified, sir. The prosecution didn't like it, so we went at it. They put it off. They would not allow me to present that rule of law. It took more than half the day. Finally, when they had other people come, one of the old men came with a big book on treaties, and he was very exacting. And he explained how much land was surrendered and everything else. The judge took that into consideration. Now, at that point, I wanted to say we have to determine whether this treaty was valid or not. Was it a treatise? Was it made with a corporation or a legal country? I didn't have a chance to determine that. He just turned to me and said, all right, sir, present your rule of law. So my rule of law is quite simple. That these, and I presented the document to back it up, these treaties are subject to international rather than municipal law, which he's part of. That's an old term from the 1800s. Municipal law means like Canadian jurisdiction and law. So where it's at the international level, there's no Indian that could take it there because they're classified as a prisoner of war. So I was not registered as an Indian. I removed even that so-called C-31 or whatever the hell they call it. None of that applied. I was never part of it. But I put that in the document when we sent the names in to remove from the jurisdiction of Canada as a tribal unit that brought up the people. Now going back to Saskatchewan, I was prepared already. So where after that case, when I explained to a lot of the people, this particular case, it could set a precedent if you look at that. And I told the judge, I'm not here to set a precedent. I'm not here even to participate in due process. But I will, as long as I can, present the rule of law. So the rule of law, again, is quite simple. That treaty belongs up here, international law interpretation, which I did right in that courtroom. It doesn't belong down here under Indian Affairs or the government of Canada. That's a crime. Canada committed a crime right there, assuming jurisdiction and taking that treaty and acknowledging it under their law and jurisdiction, under their constitution, which they didn't have till the Queen came here in 82, or passed it here in 82. Now, so he looked at that and he said straight out, he said, I'm going to take at least a month to decide whether I have jurisdiction in this matter. So I presented the rule of law that all I needed to do. I went home. I got a call from the two brothers. They were in confusion. They were in confusion. They said, we don't understand his decision. I said, read it out. Do you have a copy? He said, yes. So what they read to me was this. He said his assessment of everything was that they were guilty. And he said so. He said, I find you guilty. And I'm going to impose a sentence which is double the amount of taxation money owed on the tobacco coming into Canada. It came from New York, Mohawks. So his final words were, but it's not enforceable, and I will not make this courtroom into a collection agency. Well, he's lying right there because they collect fines every day. And as for the other statement, it's not enforceable. In other words, he's saying, I don't have jurisdiction to rule on this matter. There it is, very simple. The Federation, before I went over, they cut in. They asked me if I knew anything, and it was Roland Crow. He was the head of the Federation. I know Roland, he knew me. And he phoned me and he said, can you help these guys? I said, yes. He said, well, what's your fee? Well, I don't charge a fee. I go by the old way. Whatever people give, I accept. If it's a room with a bowl of soup, that's good enough. Because I'm there for the people to present a rule of law that supersedes that courtroom in that country called Canada. And that's why I do it. Now, having said that, so this judge was learned, and if he wasn't, he got probably schooled quickly by the Privy Council of Great Britain via Privy Council of Canada, because they understand international law. So even though I was speaking English, I had to present international law superseding them. And the treaty belongs up here, not down here. So that's what they knew that all along. But they needed to hear it from an Indian. They don't listen to anybody else because they know who's under their law and jurisdiction. That's Métis, First Nations, C31, and all those other whatever. Okay?
Yeah.
Which I am not, and never was part of any of it.
So what did you learn from that experience or from going to court?
What I learned is that the judiciary of this country, they need a good ear banging. They need a good education. That's what I mean by ear banging. Because they're assuming jurisdiction and they're committing a crime and they're getting away with it and they think they're going to continue to. Well, I'm doing my best at my age to put an end to it. So in a lot of cases, I shouldn't say a lot of cases, in a few of the cases, right away the arrogance of that judge is such that I can read right by looking at him. He's convicted so many Indians, and I tell him straight out, you're not going to use any convictions of the past in this matter. Because the people here are now under the protection of a signatory Indian tribe.
This one's a little long, so I'm just going to read it directly here. Why isn't this taught in schools, K-12, university, law school? There was a woman lawyer a few years ago who refused to swear her allegiance to the crown, and so they had her swear an alternative oath. Are you familiar with this case, and what impact would something like that have on the domestic court system?
I inquired about that woman, and people who were talking about her knew her. Nobody ever got in touch with me, because that is unbelievable. I don't believe that for 1 minute. See, I can do that, but I'm in a different situation than her. You may have studied law, but all you're doing is, she's doing that. They allow her, you know why? Because she's practicing their law. She don't have to swear her allegiance, from what I understand you just said, but she's still using their law. Mm-hmm. So those people, they can stand up and say, not guilty. They can be found guilty. So she isn't helping in any way. I'm not cutting her up. I want her to learn. That goes for all these imitators that are out there claiming to be clan mothers, headmen, and everything else, which they are not. You know, it's a legal venue that's all out of order. So her and others have got to be straightened out on that matter. See, put it this way, for any lawyer, and a lot of people say, oh, I got an Indian lawyer. No, there's an Indian, then there's a lawyer. So once you swear your allegiance as a lawyer to uphold the law, you're upholding the law of the crown, not the law of the Indian. Because, of course, nobody knows what the law of the Indian is. And a lot of them are making it up. And I hear these 7 laws of the Ojibwe people. Well, there's no such thing as Ojibwe. Anishinaabe. Now, there's other situations where they're saying similar things and people are coming to believe it. No. They've got to know who they are. They've got to know what being an Indian is, because that covers everything legally. You've got to know who you are, not Lester House. No, you got to know your clan. You got to know your tribe, and you have to be ruled by the authority of that territory. So that's who I answer to, the authority of the territory.
Thank you. Where are we today with things like title to a territory? If there are sovereign title holders to a particular territory, then why is there no equal sharing of things like natural resources?
Well, right now, for my perception of all of it, the reason there is no distribution of what is really owed to the Indian people is because they're classified as prisoners of war. For our people who have removed from it, we are now in a process. As a matter of fact, I'm doing the legal presentation and command to the government of Canada that the Indian, what they call today the Indian Fund, that is every dollar they've ever collected from the resources of this country. It belongs to the Indian. Okay? Now that treaty says that these people are a sovereign people. Well, they aren't. They're now today prisoners of war. They were made that way by Canada committing a crime under direction of and in cooperation with the church at one time, theft of children and etc. I being one of them in the past. Goes on and on. Their crimes are mounting up. The point of it is they can't be addressed, so nobody can access that money because they're all prisoners of war. For us, we're going to do it very shortly. And also, we're going to have to put forward a tribunal which will be run by signatory Indians who are not subject to the jurisdiction of Canada or the Crown of England.
Is there anything that I haven't asked that you wanted to add?
I'll add this. If anybody's interested in any of this, there is a traveling school. It's the private school for American Indian tribal sciences. Because to us, a tribal science is like I said in the beginning, a living philosophy. So our law is a living philosophy. You can live it, as opposed to having to prove it, as opposed to having to write about it. In today's world, we have to do this, but we do it on our terms. We don't use any legal terms of reference from any foreign nation. We do not. And to deal with a foreign nation, they'll deal on our terms because we are the sovereign. We are the sovereign as a signatory tribe. And the authority right, the true sovereign, is the one who is the authority chosen by us, the people, from the different clans. So there's a lot more to it. But the point of it is that everything that Canada is doing, and today they're trying to look so good to try and talk about reconciliation or whatever it is. To me, it's just reconstipation. They're always stuck on trying to fulfill a promise, which is a dead end. Now, having said that, I don't care about protesting. We don't have to protest. Protest is under their law. Okay? All of that. So I would like to see, it's so wonderful that people are standing up for pipelines and everything else. A confrontation should take place. But protest, that's what it amounts to. That's why they're getting arrested. That bothers me a lot. But if the people would listen, the tribal school would visit them and teach them. Bring them up so they have the authority, the proper authority will rise. Not these hereditary people. They're obviously not removed from their jurisdiction of Canada. They don't know how to do it. I'm not blaming them. It's just ignorance. Ignorance means you don't know. Well, I'm offering them to know. And for my time on this earth, it's best that they do it. Because to end it all, look around you. You don't have to talk to any environmentalists to know this is the end time. We could change it. But the only way that we can change it is when we go back to the original law that even the tribes of Europe lived by. I know that. The white tribes of Europe used to rule all over Europe for 700 years. I've got the years to show people what they should come to the private school and learn it. The reason it's private because we're selective who we accept. We don't want to take somebody that's going to learn this and run back and become a lawyer under the law and jurisdiction of Canada. If that's understandable. I don't begrudge anybody who's out there with a lawyer, even that woman that's on APTN all the time with a streak in her hair. She's just repeating laws of Canada, and she's complaining. Well, good luck to her. She means well, undoubtedly. So do a lot of them. But they don't know what an Indian is, and it seems they don't want to be anymore. They want to go by the government's terminology in relation to First Nations and all of that. Well, that's admitting you're a prisoner of war. So you'll never be heard at the international level. Because I know a lot of the elected chiefs have gone to the UN level. Some of them have gone to England for an audience with the Queen and returned and told me. A lot of the guys in research told me what happened. They were refused by the Privy Council of lawyers sitting up front before you even get to an audience with the Queen. When they stood up and said, I'm Chief so-and-so from such a reserve in Alberta, Canada, you know what the Privy Council said to them, the lawyers? We don't have any business with you today. Next. Not one of them got an audience with the Queen. None of them. And if it was, it would only be like a social thing. There was nothing ever addressed. Because if you've committed a crime against the people, you're going to hide as best you can behind your law. And you're going to use force. You're going to use force like they've been doing here with the RCMP. Now they've got tribal police who are now harassing people almost every reservation I've been to, and that's got to stop. So you tribal cops, you have no protection of whatsoever. You don't. You're worse off than the RCMP. So with that, I thank you for your time. Hopefully there's not too much editing. I didn't use any four-letter words. Thank you kindly.